Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again. My name is Richard Bravo. I'm here with Zygmunt. We're going to start in maybe just another minute or so, see if we get a few more folks that are joining us, and then we'll be jumping in to walk you through one of our Tulip Time itineraries and just kind of talking a little bit about some of the things that we'll be seeing and experiencing on this. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Zygmunt from Rivercruise Center, and I want to thank every one of you who are taking your time today on Tuesday and what's going to be a very hot week to join us for the Tulip Time webinar. And with me, of course, is Richard, who you just heard. Richard is with AMA Waterways, and he is an expert in this area. And take it away, Richard.
Very good. Thank you, David, so much for that introduction. And thank you once again for just giving me this opportunity to speak with some of your valued clients. And thank you to anybody that may be joining us. Once again, this is actually our fourth in a series that we put together, covering a number of the different destinations that AMA Waterways travels to. Just as a reminder, the main intent behind this is to really let you know that it's okay to dream of travel. We know that there are folks that we deal with on a daily basis. Zygmunt knows this, with working with all his clients. We get some folks that are, certainly more concerned, rightfully so. And we get some people on the other end of the spectrum that are kind of jumping up and saying, let me know when I can go. So this is just a way that we feel is safe for everybody to know that, again, you can dream of travel and start getting some of those different destinations on your list that you want to be able to go to as soon as things open up. Today, we're going to be covering Tulip Time itinerary, traveling through the Netherlands into Belgium. And I included this picture right here because I thought this was interesting as I was doing a little bit of research and looking up some things. This is a gentleman by the name of Carolus Clusius, I think Carlos or Charles. But going back a little bit, so the tulips, right? We're going to be talking a lot about tulips. That's a big highlight, of course, on this particular itinerary. And I found it interesting to find out that they were originally cultivated in the Ottoman Empire and imported into Holland in the 16th century. But this gentleman right here, Carolus Clusius, he actually wrote the first major book on tulips in 1952. They became so popular that it was that his garden was actually rated of bulbs being stolen on a regular basis, as a matter of fact. And so he really kind of gave some attention to these, and they were so appreciated that they actually started to use them or selling them a lot. And they created the first economic bubble that we're aware of, actually. So known as a tulip mania or tulipomania. As many bought up the bulbs, they became so expensive that they were used as money until the market in them actually crashed. So I thought that was a little bit interesting information. I thought would be fun to share.
Richard, I missed, what year was that?
That was in 1592. I
Okay.
don't have the name of the book actually that he wrote on that, but yeah, it was back to 1592. And I guess he first got interested in horticulture. He was working for a family of, the gentleman was a banker, and he had joined them on a trip down to Spain where they were actually looking at a number of different plant life and things from the New World, as they say, and that really kind of got him underway. And then he started just learning a lot more. He assumed different roles in different positions in different places of royalty and just highly respected areas within that industry, if you will. But yeah, it was in 1592 that he actually wrote this book, so I thought that was interesting to share. So this is a look at the itinerary that we're actually going to be traveling on, that we're going to be looking to highlight here. So it's round trip from Amsterdam. As you can see, it starts out up there in Amsterdam. You always have the opportunity of adding some pre or post night stays. So in this case, 2 pre-nights there. You can see all the dots that we're going to be stopping at, all these different towns along the way. So we'll be looking to highlight a number of these with this itinerary. Only traveling through 2 countries, but you can see on the 7-night sailing, and then if you add that pre or post there, there's a lot more that you can stop and see as well. So I'm just going to kind of jump right in here and talk just a little bit about Netherlands. I think when most people think of Netherlands, it's such a small country, but it's packed with just these, world famous icons, if you will, from the tulips to the windmills to the cheese markets to the wooden shoes, the canals, the Delft blue earthenware. So there's a lot of things that come to mind when you think of, what this this small country on the map has actually produced. Even looking at the wooden shoes, these have been around since medieval times. They actually created these shoes to kind of cover their whole foot as protective wear. They used to use like alder, willow, and poplar woods originally, but this dates back all the way to 1570. The canals, just in general, right? I mean, we're going to sail in all these different canals, the different Dutch waterways through the area. 160 canals running through Amsterdam alone. This is equaling over 60 miles. Additionally, we're going to be passing through or have an opportunity to see a number of bridges, but there's 1,200 bridges just in this immediate area, with 90 islands in Amsterdam too. So those are just some amazing things. You don't find this in every city, right? So to be able to be in the midst of that and experiencing this from the waterway makes it extra special. Windmills, I mean, the windmills, I think they number, if we're looking in the Netherlands alone, it's just under 1,000. It's like 991, I believe it is. And then, of course, if we're looking at the bicycles, if you join me on one of my previous presentations, you may have heard me mention that there's 881,000 bicycles, approximately, give or take, in Amsterdam alone, compared to the population, which is just 821,000. So this is a big part of it, but an amazing town, lots of things to do here. Doing the bicycle riding is something I would personally not want to do. They're very, let's just say, very sure as they ride their bicycles, but walking over these bridges, experiencing all of the canals as they kind of light up at night. The local cuisine, of course, there's so many different things to do here. And if you join us for a pre-cruise, you've heard me mention before, our cruise managers will actually join you for that experience. They're your expert local guides, making recommendations, tips, suggestions of the different things to do. I always like to remind our guests as well, if you're looking to spend any pre or post time in any city, really, not just Amsterdam here, whether you're joining our cruise manager or not, you're going to have some free time. So make those reservations for those museums, those art galleries, anything extra special that you want to do. A good suggested amount of time in advance would be somewhere like between 6 to 8 weeks. If you have questions on how to do that or looking for recommendations, I'm sure Zygmunt would be willing to offer some tips on that as well.
And a little mention here on the canals. Amsterdam has more canals than Venice. Most people don't know that. And on biking, of course, I would bike outside of Amsterdam, not in Amsterdam, because you know what the LA freeways are like? Well, Amsterdam bicyclings are worse than LA freeways. Another thing that's really interesting, if you love museums, they have tons of museums. You have the Keukenhof Museum, the Van Gogh Museum, the Hermitage Museum, the Schiff van Art Museum, which I didn't pronounce correctly, and the Amsterdam Museum, plus another dozen museums. And one of the interesting things is that we have Starbucks. Their Starbucks are cannabis coffee shops. That's the equivalent to our Starbucks.
That's right. That's right. So lots to do in this town. 2 nights should be enough to at least, check all the major highlights. It's not a huge town, great town for walking around and doing some exploring though. So just another beautiful picture that I want to include here, the facades that you get to see. What's interesting about these buildings, because they're built on canals, and as you're walking through some of the streets, you can visibly, clearly see that some of the different areas are kind of sagging, and they're preserving as many as they can. But even in looking at some of these houses, you can see that they are clearly crooked, and it's just something very interesting to see.
One thing while we're on the old buildings, there's a section in Amsterdam called the Keukenhof. I think I'm pronouncing it okay. It's a courtyard that has the oldest wooden buildings in whole of Holland, Netherlands, and part of Europe, built in the 1400s. It was originally set up as a sanctuary for Catholic sisterhoods. And now, even now, there are a number of single mothers that live around it. So when you walk through that whole section of town, they tell you to talk in hushed tones, not loud, so that you do not disturb them, which is kind of interesting because the red light district is right around the corner. Anyway.
Right. So as I mentioned, and as you know, if you've heard the other presentations, we offer a number of complimentary cruises. So at the beginning of your trip, we offer a cruise through the HAARLEM canals. And what's nice about this is with any transportation with AMA Waterways, even when you're getting picked up at the airport or you're transferring over to another city to join an excursion, you're always going to have some wonderful expert guides on board that are giving you, history lessons and kind of telling you about the culture, telling you what's, everything from the political environment to just whatever it is that maybe the current issues, and of course that history. So you'll be receiving that same sort of commentary on board the Haarlem Canal Cruise. Then we'll make our way to a town of Hoorn, if I'm saying that properly, to former Dutch East India Company base in the Dutch province of Northern Holland, dotted with a number of restaurants and cafes, some of the ones that Zygmunt was just mentioning as well also. And I want to share this next slide because I just love this picture right here, right? So you're certainly going to find some more tulips in the area. But I love this image that I found off to the right side here. These are actually some very old tulip tile panels that were at least up until maybe very recent were thought to be from the Hoorn area. It's likely that they could be from the Haarlem area as well. But it just, again, goes with that history of the tulips and just how popular they were and how everybody just kind of adorned these. Of course, when you're in the area, you always want to take on some of the local treats. So we've got that for you as well from the stroop waffle, which is actually a syrup waffle, basically. So that a wafer cookie, 2 thin layers of baked dough. They join this together with some wonderful caramel filling. So you certainly want to take advantage of that. Bitterballen, if you've heard of that. So it's this like Dutch meat-based snack. It's made with this very thick stew thickened with something called roe and beef stock, and they load it up with the meat. You refrigerate it for a period of time until the stew starts to firm up a bit, and then kind of rolling this thick mixture into these balls to get this wonderful breaded texture, and then they fry them. So that's something else to look for in the area, or even just making a stop through the Jordan district and trying some the brown cafes in the area as well too. But lots to do. The Jordan district itself too, a lot of great places to stop and grab some different snacks. Again, just right in the middle of the canals, and just great for people watching. I would say just spend some time to just kind of sit down. There's a lot to see here, but I think that's important with every trip that you allow that time just to sit and really just kind of take in the experience. And I think the Jordan district in particular would be one of those locations. Also along this journey, we'll stop in a town called Middelburg. With its majestic harbor. Across from it is the market, and you've got these wonderful winding cobblestone streets once again. This town is actually, one thing that's really unique about this is that during World War II, it was bombed quite heavily by the Germans. But unlike Rotterdam, I'm not sure if you know this, but Rotterdam was bombed quite heavily as well and lost a lot of its original architecture. A lot of that was lost in Middelburg, but really nice about this is that when they did a lot of the rebuilding, they looked to recapture as much of that as they possibly could from the original architecture that was put in place. So you'll get to see what things really did look like even prior to the war. There's a number of wonderful excursions that we offer there as well, from a walking tour, a Delta Works visit, or of course a bike ride that we offer here also. And then on some of those different tours, just a couple of different things that we would look to include there on those different tours. The Middelburg Market is a place that you want to stop. And if you, again, have heard me share on some of the ones that I've offered before. When there's a place that offers enough things to see, we're going to allow our guests extra time. It's not going to be like we're just going to hit it, give you a few hours and then back on the ship. The only time that we would do something like that is if we're visiting a very small town that maybe doesn't have a lot to see. We're going to take in those highlights. We'll give you some leisurely time in addition to that. Middelburg is one of those places we'll be able to spend a little bit more time. So in addition to those other excursions that I mentioned, depending on the day of the week that you may land here, the Thursday Middelburg markets are a great place just to go. It's where a lot of the locals go. We always want to, partake in those things that the locals are doing. A lot of the different things that local artisans are selling. So kind of almost like, some things might be kind of swap meet like also, but again, you get some wonderful things to eat as well and just see what the locals are doing as well and kind of hang out with them a bit. And then, of course, we make our way down and we'll stop into Belgium. So probably a number of things, again, that you think about when you think of Belgium. One of the biggest ones is probably going to be the Belgian beer. And this, I found out, was actually made long before Belgium even became an independent country. And they say that it may have even started before the First Crusade. So it goes way, way back here. The French and Flemish actually brewed beer to raise money at that time. And people actually drank more beer because of the unsanitary conditions of the available drinking water. So this was kind of definitely a part of the regular diet for most Belgians at that time. But if you enjoy your Belgian beers, and you know that these are primarily ales and not those lagers, there's like a heavy emphasis on the malts and these fruity yeast type flavors. So when you're there, be sure to stop and enjoy some of those local Belgian beers. You can also pick up local drinks in the areas and take them back to the ship. That's something that's unique with AMA Waterways. A lot of ocean cruise lines in particular don't allow you to bring that just back on board. You can take them back on board, enjoy them a little bit later, share them with some of the other guests, or just pack them carefully and make sure you get them back home safely. There's also the Belgian chocolates that I think most people think about when they think of Belgium. So, famous for the praline chocolates. This was actually invented in 1912. And what I also found out too, which I thought was interesting, is that it was actually a Swiss migrant by the name of Jean Neuhaus, who's responsible for Belgium becoming famous for these praline chocolates. But certainly take some time to enjoy those. We offer a number of different excursions as well, where you can go in and enjoy some of these different things. We have a beer and waffle tasting tour. There's also a Floralia flower show that you can visit, as well as the Rubens house and a walking tour to take in the local cathedral. And then we also are going to make a stop in Bruges and Ghent. And again, just a number of highlights to include here. We offer highlights of Ghent in Bruges or a Ghent walking tour, and free time to do another Belgian chocolate workshop, or a full day of Bruges and Church of Our Lady. Church of Our Lady, and if you know, the Belgians are very devout Catholic country, and it's this beautiful cathedral there in town, kind of a smaller cathedral, to say, beautiful church, dates back to 1270, 1280, when they first started construction of this property, and in devotion to this most Catholic city, if you will. This actually remains the tallest structure to this day at 379 feet. So that's something you can take in on a walking tours as well.
One interesting thing about Bruges is that it has most Michelin star restaurants in the entire country. And wow. Another thing is that there are so many underground bars. Most tourists don't realize that they're under the city. They're bars and cellar bars. And there's a pipeline going through from the bottler, where 12,000 bottles of wine are fed through the underground to the different bars underground.
Wow.
And originally, by the way, the canals of there, they were from the 14th, 15th century. They were never destroyed. And so they're now a UNESCO heritage site because it's a beautiful, beautiful cities and canal site right there.
Right. And a number of the places that we stop at, I'm glad you mentioned that, also are UNESCO heritage sites. So we include a number of those as well too, like the one that you just now mentioned. So that's great. So then as we continue on to this itinerary, we're going to make a stop at Antwerp, so it's one of those cities.
Richard, I forgot to mention something, that we didn't talk too much about Ghent, but Ghent is a vegan holiday type of a town. Every week they have a vegan day. So if anybody is a vegan, that's a great place to go. They have, opposite of Bruges, which is kind of quiet, this is a much wilder town. It has many nighttime bars on the top of many speakeasies. It has a graffiti alley, which is really interesting to visit. It's a modern part of the city and an old part of the city. But it's this town has been kind of subdued as far as tourists for a while, but now it's being discovered more because of all the different interests in the Middle Age section of the town.
That's right. Yeah, some of the best preserved medieval, one of the best preserved medieval cities. You're right. That's right.
Yes. A lot of monasteries, medieval monasteries too.
That's right. Yep. And then we'll make our way down to Antwerp. Really trendy city here also. A number of museums to take in when we're here also. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the, we have a guided bike tour here also. So again, a lot of time that we're going to allow here also for our guests to kind of go around and explore a little bit. Again, beautiful cobblestone streets. You can see a lot of statues, these wonderful gilded houses, but just a great place to really walk around and explore. We have a walking tour and cathedral visit that we offer here as well. Another waffle tasting stop that we have here also. So great town to kind of go around and explore, and just another beautiful look at the city here with this picture.
And for those of you who love churches, this is one of the places because they have a lot of big churches. The Cathedral of Our Lady, the St. Edward's Cathedral, St. Carolus Borromeus, which is not pronounced correctly by me, Cathedral, St. Jacob Cathedral, St. Paulus Cathedral. They're just really some fantastic places if you're into churches. Also, many of you might already know, but this is the diamond capital of the world. So, right. About 60% of diamonds are cut and sold and distributed in Antwerp. Due to automation, because a lot of diamonds are now automatic cut by machines, it kind of go back. The diamond cutting is not as popular as used to be over there, but still they sell majority of the diamonds comes through Antwerp.
That's right. I meant to ask about that also too. And I want to kind of look that up. Thanks for sharing that as well. Do you know when that kind of became popular? Like when they really got into the diamonds?
Well, it was very popular in the 1700s, then kind of faded, then came back again. And I don't know the exact dates right now. I can look it up. But it's 1500s. It's been around for 500 years as far as the diamond trade.
Right.
And when you're there, you should visit the Mayor Street Grand Bazaar. It's runs 5 days a week, and you can buy anything you want. Oh, by the way, getting back to diamonds, you got to be careful because there are a lot of crooks over there in diamonds, frankly. They will rip you off unless you know some diamonds.
That's good input. Thanks so much for that, Zygmunt. And then again, just, beautiful architecture, going on some of these different city tours, getting history lessons of all these different places, free time, but just imagining yourself walking through these areas. We have nothing like this quite in the States. And so just a wonderful stop along the way. Then we'll make our way over to Rotterdam. If you remember the comment earlier that I made regarding Middelburg, Rotterdam is one of those towns that was greatly devastated during the war. I mean, just from I was looking up some different things earlier, and just from the Allied forces, there are, well over 100 different raids over this, and that doesn't include the German bombing as well. Over 30,000 buildings were destroyed during this time. So unlike what they did in Middelburg, they didn't go back and reproduce a lot of them, if you will. So they actually just developed a lot of new architecture. Had a chance to stop in Rotterdam, and just some amazing pieces, extremely unique. I mean, just looking at this picture right here, the way these are all kind of lined up at these yellow fronts right there, kind of, odd shape, the way they're kind of hanging. But you'll see a lot of different structures like this in Rotterdam, and be able to get different stories of them as you're going out on these different tours as well. Of course, Rotterdam, Southampton area, many boarded the Mayflower, concluding their journey at Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts. So there's that sort of history out here. There's an excursion over to Delft that we offer here as well. Again, a number of different museums. If we're talking about UNESCO heritage sites, there's the, I'll probably pronounce this wrong, Kinderdijk also, that we'll make a stop at. And then just to look at the harbor here as well, and just some of the architecture with that bridge off in the background there as well.
One of the reasons the Germans were really attacking it, because this was their launching pad to attack Great Britain. So this is where they wanted to take off in order to go to Great Britain and take that over. So that's wiping it out.
Right.
This was originally started as a fishing village in I think it was the 1200s. And like you said, the pilgrims sailed from here in 1620, and I think it was from the district called Delfshaven.
Delft, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So lots of history on board. So I know Zygmunt is very into history, and I love that he can just share some of these things off the top of his head. And I know all of you out there appreciate it. I appreciate what the things that you bring to these conversations as well, Zygmunt. Thank you so much for that. And you were telling me that, I'm sorry?
I said, I know nothing.
Yeah, you know quite a bit, actually. That's very good. And then just again, a look at some of the different architecture. I love that one building in back there as you kind of look through the tunnel here of the Rotterdam Market Hall. Here's Joshoven that Zygmunt was just referring to also. But that building kind of looking through, almost just looks kind of like a large fat pencil or Crayola type shaped building with that really pointed top right there too. But wonderful town to kind of sightsee around. And then Kinderdijk is one of the places that we'll stop at. Also, as we're kind of starting to round off some different things here, just a wonderful little village, renowned for having the country's greatest concentration of windmills, all dating from the 18th century. And then you can also just, hop on a bike tour and pedal past some of these windmills here before making your way back to this ship. But lots of things to enjoy on this one. Is there anything you might want to add for this one by chance, Zygmunt?
Well, if you're taking biking, make sure that you're aware that on the way back, most likely there's going to be wind against you. And so it's going to take a longer to go back than go the other direction. Plus, for those of you who are listening who have not been on a river cruise, and you've been probably on all the big ships, it's very important that all these tours are already included. Unlike a big ship, you don't have to pay additional to go on these tours. They're included on AMA Waterways, and they're pretty high end, and they have slow walkers, medium walkers, and fast walkers, which means if you like to move fast around, you can join the fast group. If you are really slow, like I am, you go on the slow group. Actually, I do go on the fast group. But anyway, that's it.
That's great. That's great. Keukenhof. So when we kind of end, so after the last stop there, Rotterdam, we basically end back in Amsterdam, and there's an opportunity there to join the Keukenhof Gardens excursion. Or an Amsterdam Canal cruise. But if you've never been to Keukenhof, it's only open 8 weeks each year. And in that time, on average, it welcomes 800,000 visitors. Nearly 50 million people have visited Keukenhof since it first opened in 1950. And nowadays, you get about 75% of the folks that are visiting from more than 100 countries around the world. So it is world renowned. It's safe to say that. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention, if you've ever heard of the Floriade, this is something that takes place every 10 years. We are going to be offering some excursions, a chance to experience that in 2022. So if there's any interest, again, it only comes around every 10 years, similar to Aberammergau, the Passion Play, as that only comes around every 10 years as well. So this is something you want to take advantage of. We're offering it on a total of 8 different itineraries. I apologize, 9 different itineraries. We've got a number to choose from there. And the ways that we offer it, either if you're doing the Amsterdam pre-extension on day 3, there's an opportunity to go out to the Floriade. We stop there, I think we're on schedule now to stop there by about 10 in the morning, and would give you all the way until 2:30 in the afternoon. So you get quite a bit of time there. If you're doing cruise only and not doing the pre or post, there's still another opportunity to stop there. This one would give you about 3 hours in that instance, but again, it is an option that we're tying to a number of departures. So certainly be on the lookout for that if you're looking to plan, so you can plan that properly. And then just a couple of little insider tips right here. One of the questions that comes up in river cruising in particular is, the levels of the water. A couple things I'll share on that really quick. It was in 2018 that there were some really low waters throughout a number of rivers in Europe. And we were affected by that as well. Please don't misunderstand me. We weren't immune to it. But one thing that set AMA Waterways apart during that time is that our owner, Rudy Schreiner, is an architect by trade. So he was very thoughtful in everything he does. But when it came to the ship design, he's very thoughtful from taking into account the buoyancy of the ships, the materials. He was working with the density and the types of the glass and windows that we were putting on board, recognizing based on the different water levels, there would be time where it would be beneficial to have the bridge designed so that it could lower in certain areas on the bridge, of course, where the captain and his team are piloting the vessel. So all these different type of things he took into account. The Belgian waterways, however, are dam controlled, so we don't have to worry about high or low waters there. The other thing that's a really nice benefit is that on a number of different stops, we're going to have the same Dutch and Belgian guides joining us in the different ports of call. So again, it helps just with familiarity, just kind of building those relationships. We always use local guides in the different areas. Now, as we're kind of in this weird season where COVID is an issue, a lot of people are wondering also, you know, what's that going to be like? If you're joining a tour, we set all of our guests up with these audio box headsets. They're charged in your room each day, so you're the only one that's touching them. You go out and you join these different tours. You do not have to be right next to the guide. You can be 40, 50 feet away, listening to everything that's being said while you're taking some pictures and enjoying the safe distance from all the other folks. It's ideal for biking, of course, throughout the different areas we're stopping at. Pretty much all the places, like I mentioned before. Amsterdam, personally, would be the only place that I don't know that I'd be brave enough to bike because they're so confident the way they cycle around.
While we're talking, while you mentioned the water levels on the rivers, I experienced that a couple of years ago or 3 years ago when I was on a river on AMA Waterways, and the ship AMA Waterways could go down the river, whereas one of your competitors, who was a mass market, who I won't mention, couldn't go because their boats weren't designed to go on that water level.
This is right, and like I said before, we weren't immune to it. There were some instances where we had to make some alternate plans, but the large majority of the time, we were able to sail right past our competition, like you just mentioned, and people were just kind of amazed. Where some other peers in the industry had to maybe dock a city or even 2 cities out, we were actually to sail all the way to our final port of call. So
right,
really
they had to bus them in because the ships couldn't go.
That's right. That's right. Yep. One last note on the ship design too. Some people are concerned about the idea of like what's the air system like and all the ducts being connected and things like that. Interestingly enough, and we didn't think we'd ever have to really speak to this, but obviously it's important now. Every room is designed with their own unique air conditioning system, so nothing is being filtered throughout the ship. With all that air is coming in just to that specific stateroom. So I think that's really important to keep in mind as well. And in terms of different ships that we're going to be sailing on, so I mentioned we had 9 different itineraries. So obviously we have to have quite a bit of inventory there that we're operating on. So we have our AMA Sienna and AMA Lucia, which are going to be 2 new ships that are set for delivery next year. And we also have the AMA Bella and the AMA Serena that are sailing too. So we'll have a total of 4 ships doing these different itineraries next year. Travel Waiver Plus. This is something that really just gives you peace of mind to protect your full travel investment. And that doesn't mean you're going to get a full refund if you cancel. What it means is it protects the full value of your trip. So normally, if you were to cancel in a circumstance that was an uncovered reason, if you canceled, let's say, within 60 to 90 days, you'd be assessed a 35% penalty where you would lose 35% of everything you paid. With the Travel Waiver Plus, we would actually hold on to that 35% as a future cruise credit. So you would not lose the value of that. And when you're ready to travel at a future date, we would have that credit on file for you to use. So great way to, again, have some peace of mind, and you can cancel all the way up to 24 hours prior to departure. And this other part, I'm really happy to announce. So we are actually the only American river cruise line that has a ship currently sailing in Europe. Now, what's unique about this one, of course, is that it's not for North American guests. Unfortunately, we can't travel to Europe as of yet, but this is for German guests sailing exclusively on the Rhine, doing 5-night sailings. We've been sailing now for coming up on 5 weeks. They've been acting as sort of a dress rehearsal, if you will, for all those things that we were putting in place. And they're actually, allowing us the opportunity to be able to, see how all this works. The other part that I would add to this is that we have to follow really strict guidelines. Remember, we're on the rivers. We're not sailing in international waters like the large ocean cruise lines are. We're sailing to and through these different countries. So in addition to what the European Union is putting out with requirements, we also have to take into account what each individual country may be putting out too. So we have to manage at the highest level. Historically, we've always had health inspectors come on board to make sure that we're doing things properly. Now that is still happening, but of course with higher level of things being looked at. And basic things like the buffet, those are gone. We have no more buffets. We've got hand sanitizer throughout the entire ship. If you've had a chance to go out to maybe a restaurant anytime soon, you know that as you're walking into the restaurant, if you're walking to the restroom to wash your hands, use the restroom, or walk out, you have to wear your mask. But when you're sitting down, you don't have to wear your mask. So it's going to be the same thing on board. And it was really interesting. Our crew that was actually sailing right now on the ship right now is the AMA Christina. They actually did their own sort of test, if you will, or basically to identify, what's the average amount of time that guests are having to wear a mask. And they came up with somewhere between 22 to 25 minutes on average for these 6-day, 5-night cruises. For the reasons that I just shared, as you're walking throughout, of course you wear them. But when you're in areas where nobody is at, when you're sitting down in the area, just like you would in that restaurant, you don't have to wear the mask. This is a look in our lounge. We set up these really nice glass window partitions between each of the different sitting areas. This happens to be Wade and Leo over to the right here. They're part of our team. But you can see they're sitting in their area. No one's having to wear the mask there. You have some guests on the other side. No one's having to wear the mask there. This nice glass window partition. It's very unobstructed. So it's a really, really nice atmosphere. And then again, when you're on the shore excursions, like I described before, also, you really don't have to wear those because you don't have to be huddled in a group to hear what your tour guide is sharing.
And while we're looking at the drinks, for those of you who have not been on an AMA Water River Cruise, premium wines and premium beers are included for lunch and dinner.
This is right. And like your choice of words, premium, that's what I always share as well, too, because we're not going to be that river cruise line that serves complimentary wine and then charges you for that more desirable wine. We're going to serve you premium wines, with every lunch, with every dinner, at our cocktail hour. If you want to have some champagne mimosas at breakfast, you can do that. For arrival reception or farewell reception, we're going to serve that as well. And they're going to be local wines to the area. So when you're passing through the Moselle River, you're going to have some of those amazing Moselle Rieslings, those Alsatian Rieslings as you're passing down the Rhine through Strasbourg area. When you're in Bordeaux, you're going to have those amazing East Bank and West Bank red wines also. So it's going to be local to not just to the regions we're passing through, but if there's any wines that are specific to that port of call, you're going to have options for that as well. And like I mentioned before, you can purchase those and bring them back on ship and enjoy them as well too. So that's a really big part. Thanks for bringing that up, Zygmunt. Please take note of Zygmunt's contact information. He knows obviously how to get a hold of you. He sent out those emails and he signed up. So thanks again for that. But if you want to take a quick note here, we've got his contact information available for you. And as a final closing, Zygmunt, is there anything else that you might like to add?
No, I really want to thank everyone for putting up with me, especially over the last 45 minutes. And I look forward to seeing you next week.